This is just a list that was leaked to me by some teacher friends of just a bunch of the different titles that we are seeing CRT, which is critical race theory. Conscious, unconscious bias, courageous conversations, cultural competence, cultural relevance, cultural responsiveness, internal grappling, internalized racial superiority, intersectionality, marginalized, minoritized, microaggressions, modern learning environment, multiculturalism, normativity, culture and climate, diversion, diversity, education transformation, equity, global competencies, identity destruction, implicit or explicit bias, inclusion, intelligent environments, oppressor versus oppressed, optimized education, social justice, reflective exercises, restorative justice, social and emotional learning. This whole thing, examples that teachers have sent to me about titles and what they are learning in their training. They are teaching the concepts of CRT without literally teaching CRT. So guys, thank you for checking into my channel today. What I want to do is cover SEL. That is social and emotional learning, what it is and why I believe personally that it's toxic, to share a little bit of my lived experience, and just to give you a little bit of the tools that kind of your everyday person who is not a psychiatrist, psychologist, or in academia should know to go up against it. So social and emotional learning, it sounds amazing. When I first heard it, I was like, what could possibly be wrong with social and emotional learning? And let me tell you where they come from the very beginning. What social and emotional learning comes from is the idea of the ACEs. And I'm going to share that link. And what this link shows you is that there are a number of ways in which a person can experience trauma. And the original list was 10 items. There were 10 things on this list of which you could experience, or a child specifically could experience trauma. This is called the ACEs, Adverse Childhood Effects. So our teachers are learning these things, and it seems like a very compassionate way of learning things. So you can understand your student and better help them learn. The problem tends to be that in meeting all of these needs outside, or thinking that they're meeting all of these needs, and I'll come back to that, but in meeting all of these needs outside, what they're actually doing is taking away from children being able to actually learn. And their argument is that a child who is oppressed, mind you, that the oppression narrative, they determine what's oppressed. A child might not even know they're oppressed, is meet all of those needs. And basically, social and emotional learning today is teaching people the correct way to be empathetic. I find that kind of horrifying, that there is one way to care about people. There is one way to be compassionate. There is one way to be kind. That's another thing that we hear a lot of. When the reality is there's lots of ways, and we're different people, and we express things and feel things in a different way. So this idea that we want to focus on diversity is never diversity of thought, not even for children. But here's the thing. Children know what their life is. They know what it is at home. And when they come to school, a lot of them want to escape. A lot of them just want to dive into books and dive into their friendships and just be a part of a place where they get to feel like they are one of the crowd, and that they have a place of belonging. You do not feel like you have that place of belonging when you do some of the exercises, like a privilege walk. A privilege walk means that the children would stand in a circle. The teacher will ask them a question. A benign way of doing this would be to ask the children, how many of you had pizza this weekend? And they would step into the circle. Step in the circle if your favorite color is blue. and they would step into the circle, and they would see that there are people like them around in this circle. But the way that it's done now, the way that it's being, is that you step in the circle if you are the child of a single mother. You step into the circle if no one is home to greet you. You step in the circle if you've ever been sexually abused. You see where this is going? You step in the circle if you have an alternative lifestyle. All of these ideas have you step in the circle. And for some of these children, that's compelled speech. And for most of these children, they are standing in that circle and they are looking around at the other kids who are a bit back from them. And they are looking at them going, oh, we're not the same. And especially as the teacher starts telling them, depending on how far into the circle you are, that's how oppressed you are. So these children who've never thought of themselves as oppressed or oppressor are beginning to see their other people as the cause of their problems. So let me explain to you why I feel so passionately about this. When I was a little girl, every kind of abuse that you can imagine is probably a yes from my childhood. On top of that, my mother decided pin my dirty underwear to the front of my clothes. So she'd pin the dirty underwear to my clothes and she'd demand that I go to school that way with the dirty underwear just hanging there. She paid a neighbor boy to tell her if I wore the underwear outside of my clothes all day at school. This is the way that I was supposed to learn this lesson. And so what I did was our schools would have a coat rack in front of us or in front of the classroom. And so you'd hang up your coats and your backpacks and then you'd walk around into class. I spent my time in the back with my books and hiding from the other kids, hiding under the coats, but I still learned the lessons and I still absorbed myself in the lesson because it was a way to escape the hell that was my life. And if you don't realize that there are children who need to escape the hell and need a safe place where I do not believe that social and emotional learning really becomes a safe place. What it becomes, quite frankly, is an indoctrination center. The correct way to identify genders, the fact that some teachers will tell children that they don't even have a gender, they're too young to make that choice before they're in middle school. And then they're encouraged to take hormone blockers and different things like that. So social and emotional learning is teaching our children what families should be teaching their children. Their argument is not every family does, but many of us do. And those of us who do deserve to have a voice. The way that I believe we can fix the social and emotional learning is to reverse that, to go back into the what unifies us instead of what divides us. Ways to fight it. I know that there are a lot of parents who are just like, some want to stick their heads in the sand and some want to fight and some feel completely discouraged because this is supported on every single level. In my state, our governor's wife is heading up the social and emotional learning, which is horrifying to me. It doesn't matter that there are voices of color saying, no, we don't want this. And it doesn't matter that their white constituents are saying, no, we don't want this. We're not racist. We don't need this. And instead, it's what academia says. And our children are being used as guinea pigs in a social experiment that is already proven multiple times to be a very, very bad idea. The place that we're heading on, and this is not hyperbole, is segregation. We are having safe spaces or diversity inclusive spaces that are based on the color of our skin. And you have to wonder why they want to keep so much off of focusing on character. The fact is that a lot of administrations are saying, we're not touching this. And literally they're not. They're not literally touching CRT because that's a college level instruction. But what they are doing is teaching the concepts of CRT. They are teaching that you must see everything through a lens of racism. And on top of that, you must see everything through a lens of oppression, oppressor. So here's the thing. That's been done before. I recently listened to an amazing article with Yeonme Park. And she is a North Korean refugee who speaks out about what has happened in North Korea. She talks about how it started with taking people and breaking them up into three groups of oppressor, oppressed, and then breaking those into a myriad of other groups, and how the people don't dare to speak up against each other, and they're not taught that they even have that opportunity. On a side note, if we watch some of the things in our social media, they're doing the same. Just like in social and emotional learning, they determine what is the correct language, the correct way to be, the correct way to embrace kindness. But their kindness is only kind if you believe exactly as they do. Again, they want no diversity of thought. So just to wrap up, SEL, social and emotional learning, is in our schools. That is what you want to see. Ignore, do not say we want to keep CRT out of our schools. When you carry a sign, you want to say we want to keep indoctrination out of our schools. Educate, don't indoctrinate our children. Anytime, even if an administrator, you talk to a principal, you talk to a teacher, and they say, oh, we're not doing this. If you see equity anywhere on the school board, you know that they are doing this, because equity is equality of outcomes. And I'll share a link where I talk with a reporter who actually told me straight out, that is the goal, equality of outcomes. Now let's think about that in a normal household. If you have more than 2 children, they're not going to get equal outcomes in every situation, because you're going to have one kid who's obsessed with video games and another kid who loves science or math or reading or whatever it is. And if you have 2 different kids, one who's motivated and one who's not, regardless of anything, like if they have the same exact genetic makeup, they are still not going to get equality of outcomes. So let me make this super, super clear to all of you. CRT, critical race theory, which is really critical resentment theory, because it's teaching people to resent in every little point of intersectionality, is ultimately not about race. And I know that's really hard for people who feel like this is an attack on white people, but it's ultimately not about race. This is about power. They believe that the only truth, that the only truth there is power, that those who are in power are the only voice that matters. I'm hoping that I've given you a clear view to be able to more confidently explain why it is that we stand against critical race theory, why it is that we stand against this kind of social and emotional learning, because it is the opposite of healing people. This is actually truly hurting people. This is making people think and believe forever that they are part of an oppressed side or an oppressor side, and there is nothing that they can do about it. And that is truly a miserable way to live. I'm going to make content very frequently. I'm not exactly sure how frequently that is, because I am a mom, I am an aunt, I am moving, all sorts of things. But if you'll like that bell and subscribe, then as soon as I make a new video, it will come up. I really want to create something that makes it clear, that makes you feel supported, and that gives you the tools that you need to go out and continue this fight. Peace, you guys. Have a great day.